and welcome back to another episode of Pole Position, the podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Holmes, and joined once again by Stitt and Bryan Loomis. Welcome, guys. We are here to talk about screenplay, specifically adapted screenplay. First, we'll tackle original screenplay next. Um, we're starting with adapted screenplay because, for my money, the top two Best Picture front runners are both in adapted. That may be different. I know, Bryan, you're big on sentimental value, which obviously is an original screenplay. Anyone out there that is banking on Sinners, that's also an original screenplay. So maybe you disagree. But this is going to be a battle. One battle after another, you could say. Um, but first on my list, just because I am leaning towards Hamnet sight unseen right now, I have Hamnet at number one and best adapted screenplay to bolster it a little bit. But this is razor thin to me, guys. Bryan, do you have Hamnet or do you have something else?
I have something else, but Hamnet, I think, has a real shot here. More so than in director or picture for me. This would be a place where the writing of Hamnet seems to be a standout of like people really like how it's written and how it portrays its ideas. So I definitely could see it, but I do currently have it at number 2.
Raf, do you have Hamnet on your list? Is it at number one, number two?
Imagine if I didn't have it on at all. It's number one for me.
Wow.
Yeah, I think compared to something like One Battle After Another, Hamnet feels like something that will be more of a script forward kind of movie. When they do the little clip where during the show where they're giving you bits and pieces from the screenplay, I feel like that's gonna make people feel all fuzzy. So yeah, Hamnet feels like a strong number one. It's obviously a strong contender for Best Picture, and this seems like an area where it can really shine. This category in particular.
I will say too that I have not read Hamnet, although I've been trying every now and then when I go in a store to find Hamnet and read the book. But I remember when people were discussing this movie, they were saying that Hamnet, the book, is a little bit poetic in nature, and they weren't sure how it was going
Hmm.
to adapt to the screen. And so the fact that Hamnet is getting such strong reviews off of a book that might be a little bit tough of an adaptation, just based on the poetic nature of it. I think that's kind of interesting. So, but Bryan,
I have a
tell us
question for you
how.
guys. Sorry, before we
Go ahead.
before we move on, I have a question. Do you guys read this as best screenplay that happens to be adapted, or best work adapting something else into a screenplay? Because the
Yes.
idea of like taking a novel that is more poetic and maybe doesn't read well on screen when you're thinking about it, like that is its own kind of challenge. But just like taking something and then making a really good movie out of it is something kind of different. So which way do you guys read this category?
I
I've
don't think
taken it
the
all.
Oscar voters are reading these books. So I think they're just voting for the one that they like the best. But that's my cynical answer.
That's
Best screenplay
true.
that happens to be adapted.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Bryan. I mean, the only way that the marketing, the campaigners behind the movies maybe could to be like send snippets out to the industry and be like, look at the work that Chloe Zhao did, and she's not alone. Someone else helped to write this screenplay. No, it's
It
just
was
Chloe
the
Zhao and Maggie
I
O'Farrell. It's
think
just the
Maggie
author.
O'Farrell
Is
helped
the
write the
author.
screenplay a little bit too.
So they could have Chloe Zhao and Maggie O'Farrell go out to the campaign and have Maggie O'Farrell do things like, yeah, Chloe did a beautiful job of helping me translate this to the screen because here's my section and how poetic it is. And here's what
Mhm.
she brought to the screen and how she translated that to have visual and, and how she created dialogue out of that. You know, they probably won't read the book, but the campaign behind it could do it. But But I think that's the only place where that would go in. But overall, generally, when it comes to adaptations, they're probably just thinking, what's the best screenplay to me that just happens to be adapted. But when we talk about original screenplay too, I think sometimes how original is the screenplay can be as much of a question of how good is the screenplay. So, but I think it just wavers depending on the year. So, Bryan, tell us why you have Wicked for Good at number one.
I certainly do not. I've got One Battle After Another at one, and I think similar to like the Anora and Oppenheimer years, it could be just like a rising tides lifts all boats. One Battle After Another is going to win a lot of Oscars, and this would be one of them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that was not a surprise. I have One Battle After Another at two, which is a razor thin. Again, obviously being in Best Picture and being another chance to honor Paul Thomas Anderson has to be said as well. Raph, do you have One Battle at number two?
Yeah, it's my number two as well. And just to piggyback on what you guys are saying, I don't think Paul Thomas Anderson gets nearly enough credit as a writer. He's one of the best script writers of all time, like bar none. He is a phenomenal screenwriter. And the only reason that we don't recognize it is because he's more talented as a director. But
yeah,
you think about any of his movies from a script writing standpoint, they are phenomenal. And he mostly does that work alone. He's done a lot of work as like a script doctor on other movies. He worked on like Killers of the Flower Moon. He helped out on Napoleon, which not a lot of people liked, but he's an extremely, extremely gifted writer. So it would also be cool to see him get recognized there.
it's a very quotable movie too, so I think people are gonna remember like lines from it and be like, "Yeah, we want to recognize this screenplay."
Bryan, have you been drinking at all today?
A few small beers.
I will say too on the topic of adaptation, again, Paul Thomas Anderson took a book that is somewhat divisive, Vineland, and turned it into basically a universally beloved movie that is so far removed. I mean, it's obviously that's the original source that he got the story from, but it's so radically changed. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, if it was most adaptation, he may be the most adapted screenplay because he is kind of, to my understanding, pretty far away from the source material. So that does matter, I think, to a degree, because if you even if the Academy hasn't read the material, if you get wind that the screenplay of the movie is like really close to the original material, you might say, "Well, do I really need to honor the movie's screenwriter for just like kind of tailoring with something that was already in existence versus
Yeah.
something that's been like more radically changed?" So, I mean, as I kind of figured, we come in here with the same top two. Um, Number three is where it's going to start to get interesting. So, um, currently, I have at number three No Other Choice, um, because I really don't know quite what else to put. And apparently, the screenplay is a really strong aspect of No Other Choice. I think it has a shot to get in Best Picture. It is weird, maybe, for me to put it at three because I do have two screenplays behind it that I think are for movies that are getting in Best Picture, but they're also kind of on the bubble. So right now, I have No Other Choice. Brian, do you have No Other Choice on your five?
I have it at five. Yeah, I do have it in there, mostly because it does get a little thin for adapted screenplay once you get into that, 4 or 5 range for me, with a lot of the best picture contenders being in original. I'd say more so than a typical year.
Raph, No Other Choice on your list?
It's not. I wasn't considering it, but I totally vibe with what it is that you guys are saying. I can see it getting in for sure. putting together this list, it did seem like it was kind of a thin year, and no other choice, to be frank, wasn't even on my radar or something that was adapted. I would have thought that to be an original screenplay. So that'll be interesting to see if it's able to get in. It's cool now that the Academy recognizes more international movies. So 5, 7, 10 years ago, like this wouldn't even be something that we would consider as a Korean language film being nominated for best screenplay. That would be absurd, and now it's like a real possibility, which is super cool.
Yeah, it's really tough, and it may very well slip off. So you might not be wrong in this regard, anyway. Raph, what do you have at number 3?
I've got Begonia at number 3. I'm pretty high on the Begonia train, as folks who have been listening to the series can probably tell by now. I'm not too familiar with the book, but the writer, Will Tracy, he used to be the head writer of at The Onion. He worked on Succession. He wrote The Menu. So, it seems like it could be something that's like fun in like the satire world. And we know, again, that the Academy really loves Yorgos. So if this ends up being a movie that gets a ton of nominations, I could see adapted screenplay being one of them.
Slight correction, Raph. You corrected me because I stupidly lumped Paul Mescal in last time as a American when he's obviously Irish. I believe Begonia is based on another movie, Save the Green Planet, a Korean film.
Oh,
I'm not sure if
whoops.
there's another. I don't know if there's a book, but same difference. Bryan, I have Begonia at number 5 on my list. Like you, I currently have Begonia in my Best Picture 10 at 10. I think it's really tough sledding right now. But I enjoyed Begonia a lot. I know there's a lot of people out there who did, obviously, Yorgos around the Academy. If some of the other nominations get in, you could definitely in a weak field see Begonia slip into the 5. Bryan, do you have Begonia?
I have it at 3. I think there's a couple of things that it does in its screenplay in really providing three-dimensionality to the characters that people will respond to, as well as the way that it plays with audience expectations and really makes you second guess yourself. So I think it's a particularly strong screenplay that people will want to reward.
Well, let me get to my number 4 so that I can upset everybody. Number 4, an adapted screenplay.
Don't do it.
I have
do it.
Frankenstein.
So do I.
Oh, me too. Oh, God, I thought you were going somewhere else.
It's a terrible screenplay. It's bad, but the Academy is going to nominate it. It's pretty well in there at this point, I'd say.
It's like the worst way that you could adapt the story. Like this screenplay is awful.
Excited to see it.
It is the worst way to present this story.
For the viewers at home, there are people who think this movie is a masterpiece. So, be your own judge. But I have not seen Frankenstein to comment on the deservingness of the screenplay. I trust you guys. I'm going in with a very critical eye to this movie at this point. But it's the category again too. Like Frankenstein is getting probably a bunch of tech nominations. It's probably getting into Best Picture because there are enough people that love it. And so it's kind of like, what else are we
Jacob,
going to put in here?
have you considered that Frankenstein's monster might not be as much of a monster as Frankenstein? Because Guillermo del Toro has considered that.
The unironic structure of this story is Oscar Isaac starting with you might be wondering how I got here kind of setup for the whole story. And then about halfway through, the monster goes, now it's time for my side of the story. And that is the unironic setup for the entire screenplay, which is just something that we should be staying away from in terms of storytelling in the year 2025. And Guillermo del Toro, who is a very talented filmmaker, thought, nope, this is the direction we're going to go in. And the Academy is going to reward him for it, which they should not, but that's the world that we live in.
Wow.
It
So
would be like Sonic getting a Best Adapted Screenplay nomination.
So, Bryan, you have Hamnet. I mean, sorry, I'm gonna go in your order. You have One Battle, Hamnet, Begonia, Frankenstein. No other choice.
That's it. Those are my
Same
5.
exact, same exact five as I have, just in a slightly different order. And then Raph, you have Hamnet, One Battle, um, Begonia, Frankenstein. We have one more slot for you. Obviously, the one that y'all were extremely worried I was going to say was Wicked for Good. Um, I think Wicked for Good had, and again, it's hard for a musical to get into adaptive screenplay. I think Wicked for Good had that opportunity for the same reasons I discussed in the director episode. If people said the second act of Wicked the musical was weak and John M. Chu had somehow found a way to fix the problems, then it would have, and plus if it was also a stronger best picture contender, then it would have some reason to get in, especially with a weaker film. But those things did not happen, so we don't really need to have that discussion. Raph.
So we've seen it happen before in another year with a fairly weak adapted screenplay category. So I could totally see it happening again. And I really like this movie. I think that it's a lot of fun, and I'm excited for people to see it once it finally hits streaming. I'm going with Wake Up Dead Man, A Knives Out Tale for my number 5 because
Mhm.
they did it with Glass Onion, and this category just feels so weak this year that there's no reason why they shouldn't throw Rian Johnson in again. Throw him a little bone.
Yeah.
He's a cool guy. He makes cool movies. It doesn't necessarily need to be like a big Oscar contender, but throw it in this category. We all like Benoit Blanc.
Yeah. So you're speaking from a place of a little more authority having seen it. My question would be, I do feel like the first two had pretty inventive screenplays. They were playing around with some structure in ways that were interesting. Does the third one do something similar that Academy voters are going to be like, well, we don't, for the screenplay in particular, we'll put this in, but not for other things?
It's maybe not as inventive as the first two, but I think it does understand sort of the conventions that it's working within, and
Mm.
it's like fairly referential in a lot of that. And I think Johnson just like knows how to put together a fun, compelling murder mystery story. Despite how high or low brow we might view those stories, he's really, really, really effective at telling compelling, entertaining stories within that genre, and I think that they will recognize him for it.
Hopefully, this podcast blows up and all three of us are at Toronto next year, so we don't have to just go off of Raph's takeaways. Special Raph here. Um, I have
You sound
I
like
have wake
my
up
second grade teacher.
I have Wake Up Dead Man at number 6 on my list. Yeah, it's. I mean, both other Knives Out movies have been nominated, and it's again, there's room, possibly. Obviously, Raph, I don't think you would be upset if No Other Choice is awesome and gets in, because we're all Park Chan Wook guys here. But you would definitely love
If
this to
both of
go in
those
over
get in,
Frankenstein.
yeah, if both No Other Choice and Wake Up Dead Man get in over Frankenstein, I will be a happy camper on nomination day.
We shall see. And who knows? Maybe the industry will agree with you guys on Frankenstein. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that kind of wraps up the real bulk of the adapted screenplay race. I don't really know much else of what you could put in here. I mean, highest to lowest
I
has
got one
been.
wild card.
What's your wild card, Bryan?
Um, I saw this yesterday, wrote a review for it. It's on the site already. Train Dreams is my wild card.
That's right.
It from the Sundance buzz, you'd think it was entirely like a visual movie, and it is very visual, but it's also very it does feel like a very strong screenplay as well. There's a lot going on. There's like a third-party narration that runs throughout that's really well done, and it has some really engaging and interesting ideas that I think could rise to the surface. So I think Train Dreams in other categories is probably pretty dead in the water, with Frankenstein being Netflix's sort of play, but I could see it sneaking into a broader and weaker category like this.
Yeah, Brian, I'm glad you brought that up because on the contrary, I think Train Dreams is chugging its way toward the best picture race. It is, I mean, it is a real possible contender now at slot 10. The little engine that could perhaps. Um,
Yeah,
so
I think
it,
Netflix isn't gonna like campaign it quite as much with Frankenstein being such a player,
I
but
think
I
they
could be
want to.
wrong. Yeah.
I think Netflix will want to. I think Netflix might feel Frankenstein is fairly safe because of how much masterpiece reaction it's getting. So they may try because Train Dreams is picking up a lot of steam. Everything you say about this movie is a pun.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't even intentional that time.
That was great.
But uh, but no, Train Dreams is
And
like
the
pundits and industry people have been talking about it, and it just released on Netflix and is getting
yeah.
a lot of talk right now. So I mean, I could fully see it, especially in
And
screenplay.
the other reason that Train Dreams could find its way into the station here is just because Netflix. I was gonna try to deadpan it because
sorry, I
Netflix
ruined your
is,
joke.
That's okay. Netflix is so big. They can campaign, like they can put money behind stuff and campaign multiple movies. They're not going to have restrictions around doing that, and we've seen them do that before. So it could get in.
Yeah, absolutely. That is totally tracking. So um, that wraps up the adapted screenplay race. Thank you guys
So,
for sticking.
before we wrap,
Rap has
I
something.
was
Okay.
just looking at it. It's not that important. I was just looking at like the list of movies that came out this year to see like what else could maybe be a player, and it's not going to be, but it is kind of upsetting that Captain America: Brave New World isn't going to be a player here. That's not actually what I wanted to say. It is upsetting that Mickey 17 isn't going to be a player because
Yeah.
that could have been a cool movie to throw into this category, but we know that it's going to get no love. But
Yeah, I think people didn't like the political commentary in it enough, and that'll keep it sort of out.
yeah,
The only other thing that I could see even really having a shot, because the other like contenders in other categories are just sort of weak screenplays, it seems. But The Secret Agent is also adapted, and that's going to get into international. So if it rises as people see it, then it could get in there maybe,
That's
but
true.
pretty
That could be an
unlikely at this
option.
point.
You know, another option could be the voice of Hinder Job. I don't think it really has a chance to get in the 5, obviously, but if we're just going down the list as a docu fiction, I don't know how much. I mean, a lot of it is verbatim recordings, and a lot of it is just verbatim acting out of real transcripts. So it may not really be considered much of an adaptation.
Yeah.
But someone did have to put that together in a narrative fashion. So I think that's kind of interesting. And also, I'm going to make Bryan probably at least upset. I don't think Raph has seen this. I personally, this is getting nowhere near the awards, but I personally thought the screenplay for The Roses was pretty sharp and enjoyable. Brian, I see, has a 1.5 star review for that movie on Letterboxd, so I'm sure he disagrees.
Yeah. I love Tony McNamara. So I was maybe particular because he did Poor Things. You know, he did The Favorite, a couple of Yorgos collaborations. So I was maybe harsher on his writing there. But Yeah, I think it really like falls apart in the third act, which is heavily featured in the very annoying trailers as well that we're playing ad nauseum in movie theaters over this summer. So,
I do respect
um,
any script that gives that gives I'm losing my Olivia Colman um,
Olivia Colman. Yeah.
Olivia Colman as many opportunities as possible to say the C word. Uh, it's always fun, but uh, yeah, no, this has been a great conversation. We will regroup and see you guys next week to discuss original screenplays. So we'll see you in the wasteland.